What happens when you got this detailed schedule down to the hour and something happens unexpected and now your entire schedule's thrown off? I mean, what happens if this is something that causes a complete transition for 2 days or a week or maybe a month? Right? How do you deal with that? And the reason I ask that question is because that's the danger of being that regimented. Structure is good, but being inflexible makes the potential for you to crash that much higher.
Exactly.
Because Whitney, that's my girl. Shout out to Nippy. She did I Believe in You and Me. That was her remix.
Wait a minute. That was a remake?
Yes.
Who made the original?
I'll Google it. I'll Google it.
That was crazy. How you help him and you come up?
I'm trying to tell you it was a remake. Wait, hold on. I'm gonna tell you. I'll tell you in a minute.
Y'all, welcome to another Twisted Tuesdays, where we have real conversations about real life experiences. Today, I have the pleasure of sitting back down with one of my favorite people, Langley Shazor, the host of the Casual Word podcast. Today, we're going to talk about the hustle culture. You know, we always work, and don't slow down. Because you know what? That's what we were trained to do. We were trained to work until we get where we're supposed to go. And I can't talk about nobody because that's what I do. I work. Don't get no sleep. So we're going to sit down and talk about that. Is it really okay to work 24/7 and not get any rest? Does that lead to burnout? So after this countdown, please welcome this amazing guy back to the platform again. Hey, Langley.
Hey, what's going on? How are you?
I'm doing well. Loading for the new year, 2025, with some more amazing conversations. And I'm glad to have you as the first episode of 2025.
I appreciate that. It's always a privilege to be here in general, but certainly it's an honor to be the first guest for your new year. We always have a great time. So thank you again.
You're welcome. And thank you always for supporting me. Every time I ask you, it's never a no. You're like, you know what? I can, but can't do it this day, but I'll do it.
Yeah, we got to support each other. You know, we talk about that often, but I never want it to be empty rhetoric. Right? I never want to be like, oh, yeah, I got your back. I support you. Like, supporting means showing up.
Showing up. Exactly. So you know how I go. I'm going to let you start out the conversation and talk about, how we hustle and never get breaks.
Ooh. Man, so, I talk about this a lot on a multitude of platforms, and the conversation really started out of my own experience and understanding that the burnout set of circumstances, and when you get to that place where the candle just cannot stay lit, it's a real place. And it's also a place where you could possibly spiral into depression. You can lead to a compromised immune system. It can lead to just poor health altogether, because a lot of what we end up doing is metastasizing these issues that we don't address, and then they take shape and manifest physically. So I started to realize that when I was 1,000 miles an hour, 7 days a week, that the first 3/4 of the year, I'm game on. But then that last quarter, October to December, I was worthless. I was tired. I was irritable. I was performing poorly at my job as well as in all my other endeavors outside of work. And it took me a long time. This went on for probably about 4 or 5 years, where I would just, ramp up in January and then, burn all the way out in October, spend all of that fourth quarter recovering, only to do it again in January. And so in my own exploration to understand how to create a sustainable pace, we started having that conversation. I started preaching more about the point and the importance of having a sustainable pace, of saying no, of not filling your calendar. One of the things that my pastor and I and several other people that I'm connected to, we laugh about is if I don't put in my calendar day off, break, sleep, something, and it might sound silly, but I'm so conditioned. You talked about that just a moment ago, to fill that space with something. And I'm so conditioned to say, well, I have time today, I should do this, I should do that, let me be productive. And the thing that I'm trying to encourage everybody, as well as apply in my own life, is that productivity is rest as well.
Yes, yes. But that's hard though, Langley. It's hard when you're like trying to reach goals. You have like these deadlines you're trying to reach, and you're like, I gotta do it, I gotta do it. But you know what? I'm right. You're right. You have to put that on your calendar, rest. And I'm
100%.
learning that.
Well, and think about this: whose timeline other than your own are you adhering to? Who's, especially for us entrepreneurs and creatives, we often take on this unnecessary burden of feeling like we're not being productive because we're not actively doing something. But you have to be able to recharge, to remain creative, and to stay focused, and to be able to operate at a high level, and to be efficient. And there's no one telling you you've got to have this project done or this idea completely fleshed out, or these things have to happen in this time frame except for yourself.
Yep. Yep. But
Right.
somebody told me they actually mapped their days out up to at least 2 months, hour by hour.
Whew.
I'm like, how do you do that? Because you gotta think about the times that you need to eat. You gotta think about the times you need to sleep. You got, if you have kids, if you have a spouse, you gotta calculate all that into that. So I think it's impossible for you to go hour by hour of what you're doing every day. But she had it mapped out for months ahead of what she's gonna do every single hour. But she said it keeps her on track. It doesn't take her off focus of what she needs to do. And she gets the proper rest.
So the only question I have for someone like that, because that's pretty remarkable. I thought I was meticulous, but that's a whole new level.
Okay.
My only question is, like, how does that person deal with disappointment?
Okay.
What happens when you've got this detailed schedule down to the hour and something happens unexpected and now your entire schedule's thrown off? I mean, what happens if this is something that causes a complete transition for 2 days or a week or maybe a month? Right? How do you deal with that? And the reason I ask that question is because that's the danger of being that regimented. Structure is good, but being inflexible makes the potential for you to crash that much higher.
Exactly. Exactly. And I told her, I said, I want to get to that point, but I don't think I can really plan out for months in ahead about what I'm gonna do every single hour. Because, like you said, the unexpected times, like what if an emergency happens, and then now your schedule that you have planned, you got to redo it again. So I'm really big on day by day.
Hmm.
Day by day would agree, because I mean I can plan out certain things can be planned and certain things can't be planned. That's how I look at it. Because we're not promised tomorrow. You don't know if you're gonna be here tomorrow.
Well,
You don't even know if you're gonna be in the next hour.
in the next hour, right? And your plan has to leave room for the
Yes.
unexpected. You don't know how much time it's going to take up, but if you're back to back, hour to the next, and like you said, something happens that throws you off for 30 minutes, well, guess what? Now your entire schedule has shifted for 30 minutes. How do you renegotiate? And then
Exactly.
I have another question, just thinking about that. Like, in this planning time, are you planning this planning time into your schedule? Right? If you're planning the schedule hour by hour, that's got to take you some time to figure out. So how does that fit into the scheduling of things you have to do?
Exactly. Exactly. So my question to you, Langley, how do you fix that though? How do you avoid the burnout? Because we all know that, well, I was raised to work, work, work to get what you want in your life, and that's what you have to do. So how do you avoid the burnout? How do you avoid, running into these roadblocks of being overly tired? Because I've been there. My health got bad, was bad at a point
Hmm.
because I was just working, 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 hospitalized for about a month. And now that set me back because now I'm in the hospital, and now this plan that I had to, complete things was gone. So how do you avoid that burnout? How do you avoid being in that situation and just saying, you know what, mind, slow down and let's rest?
Hmm. It's a couple of things, and the first being that I was fortunate to have some pretty spectacular mentors when I was younger, some older gentlemen who had been in governance and leadership positions. And one of the things that one of the gentlemen told me was that, when you love what you do, you never work a day in your life, meaning that psychologically, it's not arduous. It's not something that you don't want to do. It's not something that you dread, right? Because all those elicit emotional responses that change your body chemistry, your mind chemistry, and that exacerbates you feeling tired and worn out because you don't even want to do it in the first place.
Right.
So there's that, right? Finding something that you enjoy and that you love doesn't feel like work. The second thing is that you not only have to make time, but you have to look at what is actually important, and
Right.
and something I want to deconstruct all the way back is the idea that active income is priority. We've been conditioned to believe, especially Black people, that you have to work for everything. Why? Because we had to do that from slavery.
Right.
Right? Active income. You do this and you do that. It's transactional. You do this and this will happen. You do this and something else will happen. You come to work in this job that you can't stand. You work yourself to death, but you have a paycheck. Most of the time, that paycheck does not equate to enough to have a high quality life. We know that. Not going to get into the economics, but I want to put that out there because some of it is a belief that the only way to be prosperous is through active income, right?
Right.
So I do want to say that one of the things that will help quite a bit is learning how to capitalize on passive income. This is anything that makes money for you without you having to actually do something to do it, whether it's getting into the stock market, whether it's real estate, whether it's a combination, whether you are leasing properties or you have some rental things going on. You need something. We all need multiple streams of income, but you also want to have something. So, for example, books, right? I'm not really pressing the books right now. However, the books are still available, right?
Right.
At the height of when I was really pushing the books to get out, that was a very stable piece of income that didn't require me to do anything because I had already done the work. The books existed.
Right.
So it's just people buying the books, right? So that didn't require me to do anything. So when you talk about your creative pursuits, just like podcasting, once you get up on certain platforms, and you guys all heard my announcement about signing with Sheen, it's like, okay, cool. Now it's monetized, and all you have to do is get people to watch it.
That's it.
So you've done the front end work, which means you no longer have to do any other work in terms of the content creation for that bit of content to create income, right? So
Right.
there's lots of ways that we can look at creating passive income streams, and what that does is allow you to offset or augment your active income, and the idea being that you can decrease the amount of effort and activity required to have income. That's
Right.
where you begin to find your balance, and you can do more things. Why? Because you're not worried about the money. The money's there,
Hmm.
right? I understand the reality of this is the world we live in, and it takes money, and it takes, you got to pay bills, right? All those things are very real. So if you can figure out a way to not have to put so much effort into your income, then you can put effort into your dreams and your life and your peace. Because a lot of people don't have peace right now because they're so concerned about their income.
Exactly. Exactly. But
And
see, for a
so,
person like me, for
mhm,
instance, that has been working literally since I was 14.
mhm,
And my mom, said, when you get a certain age, you got to get a job. So I literally would work 2, 3 jobs, go to school, all the above. So a person that's used to that mentality all their lives,
mhm.
and then now becoming a full-time podcaster, investing in myself, how can I just turn that notch down a little bit and say, okay, you're working for yourself, so you can like control this a little bit, rest, because I'm really having a hard time with that lady trying to rest. I'm on every
It,
set.
it's so you have to take you're doing the first part correctly, reminding yourself that you no longer report to anyone, right? That's the first change psychologically, is saying I am the boss. If I want to take a day off, I'm taking a day off. If I want to relax, guess what? I'm not doing nothing. If I want to say, no, I'm not feeling like it today, I can do that. The second part is the execution, right? Oftentimes we are telling ourselves those things while we're still doing all the work, right? Like you're in there, you're in the kitchen cooking, right? You're doing all the work that has to happen for your podcast. Like, man, I need to take a break. Man, I need to sit down. Man, I need to sleep. And the whole time you're still doing this.
Right. Right? On vacation, still working.
Still working. So you have to, and I can't, this is different for everyone, but I have to emphasize that you have to get to a place where it's not just talk, it's also action. Right. Just like if you're trying to create something, it requires action, right? A dream without action is just a wish. So if you turn that around and you look at rest doesn't happen without you actually taking it. So it still requires action. It requires you to stop doing something in order to take the rest and to enjoy life. So if I were to give you a practical step, it would be when you have the thought, and you're just say you're in the middle of doing something and you're like, man, I should probably take a break. At that moment, make yourself stop. Just stand up.
Yeah, that's easy said and done.
It is. It's going to take focus and intentionality.
Right.
And it's something that you have to do. It's a behavior that you have to learn. And so it becomes a process that you have to do over and over until it becomes second nature. And utilize tools. I have, I've got a wearable. And one of the things that I like is that it reminds me, hey, get up and get away from your desk. It's not what it says, but that's how I take it, right? It's like, hey, don't forget to stand up. And I'm like, you're right, I should stand up. And so I do. And then I'm like, yeah, you know what? I should get some water. Let me go outside and get some sun, whatever. So it's that initial step that says, oh, I need to get up and not stare at the screen all day. And then I'm able to go and disconnect for a little while. In more stressful situations, I found that going outside and removing myself physically helped quite a bit to allow me to refocus and recenter and come back and execute on my job. So you might not be in a high stress environment, but it still may behoove you to just get up and walk away from all of it. In a physical sense, not give up on your dream, but just get up and walk out of your studio, out of the house, and just relax. One of the other things that I often talk about is that you need to have a hobby or an interest that has nothing to do with your career or work or your entrepreneurial ventures. That is super important for balance. You need to do something that takes you so far away from your daily operations that it allows you to truly disconnect, right? That's something that you have to find, and that's also action. Because a lot of people are like, oh, well, they'll be like, well, I go for walks, but when you go for walks, do you think about work? Okay, well, then it's not helping. Yes, you're getting up and being active, but you're not disconnecting your mind from the source of the problem. So you need to find something, excuse me, you need to find something that makes you forget for a little while about the issue, or something that at least takes your mind away from whatever's going on, even if it's good stuff, right? Because too much of anything is a bad thing. All things in moderation, right? So you find something that's like, let's say we'll take the podcasting, for example. You're in here, you're doing the creative part, you're doing the post-production, you're doing the shooting, you're doing all these different things around the technical aspect of podcasting. You need to do something like paint and sip, or make some habit of going to the zoo. I don't know what you guys have there. Go to the zoo, or you got that young one now. Do something that engages her mind and her intellect, right, and takes you out of the environment as well as out of the mindset.
Right. Now that makes sense.
That's where you start to generate new ideas, right? It's the forest for the trees. We often contextualize as a bad thing, but it's also a good issue that you can use to force you into a creative space, right? Some people often use, oh, you can't see the forest for the trees because you're missing something and something bad's happening, or you're dropping the ball somewhere. But forest for the trees also means that you're so focused on all the good stuff that you're doing that you can no longer generate ideas.
Right.
right?
Right.
So you have to disconnect in order and get your brain thinking about something else so that some ideas can populate.
Hmm. So my final question for this session is, do you think there's a way, or like I said, for a person like me, with the born and bred this situation of you gotta work, work, work. Do you think, now I know you said over and over again there's certain techniques that you can do to come out of that, but a person like my mother that has been literally working for like $1 an hour,
Mm.
she's been working for $2, then we've been on every level of the dollar mark, from small to big, with the hustle mentality. Do you think it's possible that she at 70 and 80 years old can change that mindset of saying, you know what, it's time for me to sit down, it's time for me to stop hustling, even though all my kids are grown, she still
Yeah.
has that mentality to go out there and work another job?
That's complex. That's complex because after I would say 55 years of working, right? Um, that's a hard habit to break, and it's easy for me to sit up here and be like, well, if you don't slow down, your body's going to sit you down. But there's an interesting caveat to that because at a certain age, becoming sedentary is a death sentence,
Hmm.
right? So for that generation in particular, you have to just work on striking a balance with fun time and some rest and still being on the go, because what I see, and studies will show that after you get into your retirement age, we'll say,
Hmm.
those people who were genuinely busy and had things going on, once they slow down, their body starts to decline rapidly, their mind declines rapidly.
Hmm.
So you never want to deprive someone of the opportunity for longevity, but you also don't want them to work themselves to death, right? So it's like,
Right.
how do you determine what that balance looks like? For someone her age, I would only recommend you taking advantage of times where there's nothing on the schedule,
Hmm.
right? Um, and I think that's probably the best way to address that is, hey, there's not anything on your schedule or whatever her internal clock looks like. You're not doing anything today. Like, don't fill it with something. Let's go and hang out. Let's go and sit and watch a movie. I say this. My partner and I have these same discussions because she's very much an on the go all the time. Something
Hmm.
There's always something to do, and one of the things that we talk a lot about is, we may go do something, but it's something that's easy. Like, for example,
Right.
just recently we went and looked at art.
Hmm.
That was it, right? Slowed down and just looked at art, and we talked about how it made us feel. We talked about the expression. We talked about the colors, and it was not about work. It wasn't about anything else. Just me, her, and the art, and having a fun discussion. And that was something that was very beneficial. So you can do things that are designed to be at a slow pace that are
Hmm.
also beneficial to you.
Right. And I call her Happy Feet because every time you turn around, she's either going to revival, she's going to prayer service, she's going to church. She's like heavily into the church. And it's like everything
Hmm.
that's going on in the church, she's gonna be there. And if it's not church, it's some kind of event she's going to keep going. And she's been retired for years. And see,
See, it's on the move now, huh?
she's
It's
still
on the
on the
move.
move. And see, when
Yeah.
my grandmother was the same way. And when my grandmother slowed down, she got sick.
Yep.
And eventually she died. So I'm
So
trying to get her to like slow down, but not slow down to the point where it stops her from living her life too.
well, and I think that's probably, not to speak out of turn, but I would venture to say that that's probably some sort of fear innately, right? Because if she watched that happen to her mother, she's like, yeah, I don't want to do that, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, let me keep going until my last breath because I don't want to have that happen to me,
Right. You're
right?
right.
So you have to just, and you got to be creative. You got to be creative. What There's nothing that would. And I know she's older; it's a different generation, but we are in the digital information age. There's nothing that precludes
Yes.
her from maybe, like, instead of going to church, watching church at home one night.
Hmm.
and maybe that's something that you all can do as a group, that's supportive. So she's still getting her faith, she's still getting that fellowship, she's still getting a word, but she's not actually up going, getting dressed, having
Yeah,
to drive back, and all the other things that come along with going to church.
going to church. You're right.
So
Langley,
there's some ways to explore compromises that allow people to still do the things that they enjoy
yeah,
without having such a high level of physical activity around them.
yeah, you're right. It's a lot of things to do, and I tell her that all the time. It's a lot to do, but sometimes you got to rest. Now, don't get me wrong. When she's tired,
It's a
she
wrap.
will lay down and she will get that rest.
But what I have found is that exhaustion does not equate to getting rest. Right? Like
It's a difference.
when your body finally just shuts down, most of the time you're going to wake up tired because you've deprived your body so long. This is
Mhm.
just survival mode. You're not
Yes.
actually getting rest. You're not actually feeling re-energized and recharged. You're just like, okay, now I can move a little bit more.
Right,
You
right.
know,
Yeah, there's a difference between rest and sleep.
absolutely, absolutely.
That's the
And
difference.
rest doesn't mean going to sleep.
Right.
Right?
You could just be laying in the bed relaxing, watching
Just
TV. That's
that,
rest.
that is rest. That is rest. And I will reiterate that it took me a long time to figure that out,
Me
but
too.
I am thankful that I haven't perfected it, but I'm certainly in the pursuit.
Awesome, awesome. Well, Langley, it's always a great conversation with us on a Twisted Tuesdays. Hopefully, I have you back again this year.
You
It's always
already know. You already know.
but
Sign
you
me up, coach.
exactly. You know what time it is. This is your time to shine your spotlight. Let everybody know what you have coming up in the year of 2025. If you decide to, share, because nowadays we have to move in silence because we don't want people talking against us. So if
Mm,
you
man.
decide you want to share, you can share and let them know how to follow your journey too.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. As always, it's a pleasure to be here. One thing that I've often forgotten, I mentioned it in the conversation, but I do have 7 books available on Amazon. They range from poetry to self-help, self-improvement. There's even a men's devotional. So I'm always working on some new content. So be on the lookout for more titles. But you can just search my name, Langley Shazor, in Amazon, and all of my book titles will come up. Also, you can find Casual Word Radio anywhere you get your podcast. We are also on YouTube. We've got some older video footage there. I'm on the King Network TV app that you can find on Roku, Casual Word Radio. And as I mentioned, we just signed with Sheen Magazine for the Sheen TV app. We've got 1 episode up. This is one that you can actually watch as well as listen to. And we'll be bringing you more polished and premiere content on that as well. So those are the big things that are happening right now. Very excited and honored to have been selected to work with Sheen, as well as for all the support that I've had with being a guest on other podcast platforms, as well as everybody listening to mine. So that's really where I'm at. 2025, I look to really work toward working with our young men on a multitude of levels and dealing with a multitude of issues. If you're interested, you can go to the VI source. Um, St. Thomas source, excuse me, and I have a column called The Lounge, and it's for men, and I just every 2 weeks, so bi-weekly, you can read about some of the things that men talk about, some of the issues that we face, and this is just an outlet for us to have the open discussion and hopefully generate conversation that men normally wouldn't have. So thank you again for having me, and look forward to seeing you guys in 2025.
Awesome. You always got something going on. See, you hustle, but
I
but
do.
you know how to rest though.
I hustle with purpose, but I also hustle with patience.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again. Like I said, from always supporting me, and I'll see you on the next time. And we going to the top together. We in it together to win it.
That's it.
Period.
That's it, all the way up.
Period. And thank you so much to everybody else out there tuning into this amazing episode that we had about the hustle culture. I was raised to time I started, I was old enough to get a job. It was time for me to hit the pavement running to make money. So I was raised to work, 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 work. And anybody that knows me, that's what I've always done. Worked, whether it was one job, 2 jobs, went to school at the same time, did what I had to do. Because for one, I was a single mother, so I had to work. I had to provide for those kids. So if you're out there like me in this world that has been just working all your life, trying to get to that point, it's okay to take a break. And I'm speaking to myself too. It's okay to take a break. It's okay to slow down, because you know what's supposed to happen is going to happen, because your story is already written. So you really might not have to work that hard, because God already got it covered. So we just need to learn how to slow down and still get where we're going. So until next Tuesday, I hope that y'all have a great day. And I hope that you follow, like, and share. And thank you so much for tuning into this amazing episode, as always, with Langley Shazor. And make sure you follow his journey, the casual word, and get a great word. And also, you got to tune in on Wednesdays too for his Bible study, his virtual Bible study. I'll be tuning into it's amazing. On Facebook, you have to make sure you tune in on Facebook. Don't miss that amazing, powerful word that he gives on Wednesdays. So thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you the next time. Later. Thank you for tuning in to another Twisted Tuesdays. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation today. Please like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you next Tuesday.